Let's have a little laughter.
It's like,
You do that before each one of your YouTube videos. Hello. I'm here today with Anna from awaytolivewell, who's going to speak to us about the importance of rest.
yes indeed.
So Anna, how would you define rest?
So that's a really interesting question actually, because I think we often think about rest as like when we go on holidays and we kick back on our sun chair and we do whatever in that space that's imagined in another place, right? But I think that we can incorporate rest in our day, and I don't mean like, okay, I'm going to sit down and scroll through Instagram for like 20 minutes and that's going to be my like downtime, like decompressing from work. It's not a distraction from the things that we're doing on a regular basis. It's actual time that you set aside in order to just recharge your battery, like the same way you would do with your phone. It's like low battery mode, okay, I need to like put it to the side now and not use it so that it can just replenish itself and have the energy that's needed to come back and do the things that we need to do in our day to day.
So how would somebody do that?
Yeah, I mean, so anything that is a non-doing activity. So what I mean by that is even sitting down and reading a book is essentially doing, right? You might think of it as a little bit of downtime, but your brain is still processing all this information, or you're taking something in, or you're maybe cooking. You feel like that's a leisurely activity, but it's still a doing activity. So in order to fully rest, and this is the part that really gets people, it's like you just have to not do. and how do you not do? Well, you can like set yourself up in a position where the body feels completely supported and comfortable. And it's not even meditation as such, because if you think about it, meditation is doing something as well, because we have to be in the present moment and aware of all things. This is like an allowing of the body to completely just go into a kind of reset mode where you can actually start to tune into your deeper self as well. So Carl Jung actually spoke about this really nice, this idea of an inner companion or our intuition, right? So that this is a space where we can hear our own thoughts and our own being a little bit more clearly, and this is simple as not doing, which is really difficult for a lot of people actually, this non-doing idea. So how would you go about doing it? Yeah, set yourself up. I like to use props to support the body in a really restful state, but you can lie onto the ground. I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with Shavasana. So it would be kind of a Shavasana state where you're present, but you're completely rested, right? And it's easy to attain after you do like this yoga practice that maybe gets you all your energy out, but how can we sort of incorporate little moments of Shavasana or just non-doing throughout our day? And I think it is possible, for sure.
How would you incorporate Shavasana kind of moments into your daily life without falling asleep? Because let's say, for example, you do have a lot to do, you are a busy person. Most busy people are the ones who actually need to slow down and who need rest. But as a busy person, what can happen is if you take 10 minutes aside to lie in Shavasana, you could just collapse into sleep mode. So how would you avoid that from happening?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think, importantly, is to set up kind of bookends in your day. So if you can take a time in the middle of the day, that's also awesome. But I think the most important thing is to have your morning and your evening have a time set aside in these places where you can take those moments of rest, right? So if in the morning, I mean, it's really, you know, you hear it a lot, people talk about just having a time where you can just start your day without all the stuff pouring in already. Like, don't turn on your phone yet, keep it set aside. Don't even start doing anything. You can take this moment in bed, like, before you wake up, you're there, and don't even start like thinking about what the day has in store for you, but allow yourself to just arrive into this day, right? So like this sort of dream state still carries on with you, and that can be really helpful to just have a different sense of energy throughout your day as well. And then in the evening, again, turn off all your devices and you get yourself set up for the day. I like to turn on a candle. I mean, that feels like it's almost like the switch for me. It's like, okay, the candle is on now. I'm going into like downtime mode, and then I'll take some time to just be there. And it's not necessarily meditation. It's just a little moment of maybe, again, lying on my bolster or lying on my bed in a really comfortable position where I'm just non-doing.
Are you thinking?
I mean, thoughts are inevitable, it's you can allow them, but it's just this allowing of thoughts and just, whatever comes up, comes up. You're not trying to force anything, but you can just be more in the body, the senses. That's always good.
Okay, good to know. So no movie time, no Netflix? Or would you say they can have Netflix but then have the downtime afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do Netflix. You can do all of the things, right? But as long as you make that time for the conscious rest. And it's funny because I think people often reckon that that's the thing that they can forego, right? The resting time. And you'd rather, just put on a Netflix show and you feel like that's your brain switching off, because you're like, okay, I don't have to think about this. I can just be like in this show and it's going to absorb me for a little time. And it does, it works, it's a way for the brain not to have to think about things. But actually, the brain would be so much happier if you just took away all the stimulus, like just allowed yourself to just be. And that is far more restful, even if you do 5 minutes of that compared to an hour or 30 minutes of your Netflix show. It's going to be way more conducive towards just that recharging of the spirit, of the mind, and everything.
Interesting. Okay, so a very common question when it comes to rest is, well, I sleep like a rock, isn't that enough rest for me to have? What would you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really good point as well, right? So I used to think this, definitely. I'm a really good sleeper. I just go to bed, I crash out, and I have like this long sleep, and I wake up and I'm like, that's fine, it's great. But often when we come to sleep, we're so exhausted. So, a couple of things can happen. Either you're so exhausted that you now can't sleep, or you're so exhausted you just collapse into this heap, and you don't even know what position you've placed your body in, and you're just like, completely wiped out. So what about if we came into our day from a place of restedness, rather than having to rest because we're so depleted, right? So I think there's like an energetic change, right, if we approach things in that way. So rather than having to get that really hardcore sleep, it's like it feels more of like a softer transition. I think the body likes like anything, like when we talk about muscles, right? You don't want to force your muscles into anything because they'll resist, right? So it's the same as like, okay, I must sleep now because this is my allocated time for sleep. And if I don't get X amount of hours, I'm going to be completely wrecked again tomorrow. And that carries on to the next day and the next day. And then you hit the weekend and you're like, you need to catch up on all of that sleep. You need to catch up on all of that downtime. And you do it in ways that are more like often coping mechanisms, right? So you go out and have a bottle of wine or whatever, whatever your coping mechanism is. And we're never quite catching up on that rest time. It's just like carrying over. So sleep is excellent. If you can get a good night's sleep, which is really difficult for a lot of people, that's great. But if you have difficulty sleeping and you take time for rest, then you're giving your body a little bit of a head start as well. Right? So that even if you have that trouble getting to sleep at night, you're not as non-functional, right, the next day, because you've collected these little pockets of rest throughout your day before. So.
Would you reckon that a person who usually needs 8 hours sleep, if they rest for an hour during their day, could they get away with 7 hours sleep?
I don't know. That would be something they'd have to experiment for themselves. I mean, it's a case-by-case basis, right? I know what serves me. I know sometimes during the month I need more sleep than others. I know I need more rest during the day, some weeks than others. It'll just depend what's going on for me emotionally, what's going on for me in my work, and all of these things kind of factor in. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, because you have to nearly be conscious of how your week is going to go and where you need to incorporate more time for rest. But also it's just like a practice, right? And it starts to become more intuitive, and you'll know that you need more rest at times than others, or you'll know that you need to step away from social activities that maybe you can just say no to as well at some points. And I think that's, I forget what the question was again.
It was whether we need to, if we can get away with sleeping less hours
during
the day.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly, but also maybe not. Maybe sometimes you just need that extra sleep.
There's a lot of debate when it comes to the sleep cycle that we get into, right? And the reason why we need 8 hours is because we enter different states of sleep. But there are a lot of people out there who are saying that they can get away with 5 hours, or people who meditate a lot can get away with less. Personally, when I meditate a lot, I find that I can't get away with less. I still need to get as much sleep as I usually do. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like, is there any scientific study that you've read on this?
I've definitely heard that meditating is as good for you as taking a rest, or nearly more productive even than taking a nap, right? Because in a nap we're just asleep and you're gone, right? But if you meditate, you can make your focus consciously resting, right? And that's, I guess, also links into the rest. If you're consciously taking that time for rest, then it adds up to, again, that recharging of the battery. So I can see how that might work for people. Personally, it probably wouldn't work for me either. I know I need like my 8 hours sleep as well. Yes. And I just feel much more productive the next day. And I think, again, it's just about like really gauging what it is for yourself, I mean, I've heard things like, Einstein used to sleep for, I don't know if this is true, all the things about Einstein are a little bit foggy, but he would take like 20-minute naps and wake up 20-minute naps and something like this. And he would have this elongated day, he would never have a full night's rest, but that sounds a bit...
I have a friend who, she is a very, very good student, and what she'd do is she would study and then she'd take a nap for 15 minutes. And then she'd get up and she'd do something, and then she'd study, and then every time after she studied she'd take a nap for 15 minutes. She'd be very good at waking herself up after 15 minutes, which for me, like, that is crazy, because if I take a nap, I'm out for 5 hours at least. But I've personally witnessed this. She would study, take a nap 15 minutes, and then study again, or do something else first, and then study, and then nap. And so she would end up taking about 4 to 5 naps during the day when she had to prepare for an exam. And she would always get very, very good results. And she wouldn't really have to memorize anything.
That's really cool.
I've never seen her sitting down and actually memorizing things. She would read maybe 2 or 3 times and then take a nap. Maybe when she wakes up, she'll revise to make sure that she knows it. Do something else, and then go to the next bit and read a few times and then take a nap.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because your brain is doing all this processing, right? So if you're taking in this information and then you allow yourself to just absorb it in a state of semi-sleep, because she's not like fully asleep, it's a 15-minute nap, You're absorbing that information and you wake up and then you're kind of fresh again, and there's a there's a thing that happens in the brain whenever we're sleeping or resting, where it starts to just clear out the brain fluids. Have you heard of this? So that's the reason they think we need sleep, because most of our muscles have this kind of lymphatic drainage thing that happens on a regular basis, but our brain can only do it when it's asleep. So she's like processing and clearing the brain, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and she's very young. It's just a natural way of doing things. She's like 18 or 19. Well, when I witnessed this, she was about 18 or 19. And I'm not sure if she learned it anywhere, but it was just her natural way of doing things. And we both were studying at the same time, and I was up studying for longer than she was. And she was just like, read, nap, read. Oh, you know what? I'm done with the whole chapter. I'm still staying here trying to memorize things. It's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible in all the ways that the brain functions that we're just starting to figure out. So Anna, if you had to give people a challenge, let's say, how many days would it be? Like a rest challenge?
A rest challenge? Yeah, so you could start off with 7 days in a row. That's always good. And then once you've done the 7, you're probably like, oh, I can do another 7. And then you've got your 21, and then you've started a habit.
Oh, amazing. And how would you structure this challenge?
Yeah, so again, it's just like finding the most feasible time for you. I know if you have children, for example, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to structure your day in this way, but I'm sure if they take naps, you could take time for rest. That would be a great way to incorporate it. And if you have a really busy schedule where you go to social events in the evening, then you need to schedule your rest either early in the day, or even if you can, I know a lot of people working from home at the moment, so you have that opportunity, at this kind of like 3 o'clock slump sort of thing. A lot of people reach for like sugar, to like get them through it. But what if you, instead of going to sit and have that chocolate bar or whatever it is for like 2 minutes, but if you just consciously take a moment you can do it sitting as well at your desk, and just close your eyes and just consciously rest, like allow the body, like you can do your body scans. I'm sure you've taken 3 body scans where you're just like, I'm relaxing my feet, relaxing my ankles, and so on, moving up through the body. And that can be more conducive than sugar, high and low, right?
Do you have any visualizations that people could do while they're resting? So let's say you have somebody who's a complete beginner to this kind of knowledge and realizes that he or she could actually do with a little bit of rest in their day. But they're not used to meditation and they're not used to resting, but they are quite visual. And having something that they can visualize while they're resting could probably help them. What would be something that you reckon they could be visualizing as they are resting their body?
So, interesting. I don't really use visualizations that much. I'm aware that a lot of people actually can't visualize things,
yes.
So that is always on my mind. So I think about other ways to go about it. The way I would come to rest, if you really have difficulty with it, I think there's certain other things you can start to practice first that can help you get to the state of non-doing, right? So I use restorative yoga and meditation and yoga nidras as a way to open us up to this idea of non-doing. So all of these things that I've just mentioned, they're technically doing activities, even though they're quite still and calm. There is focus. But even by having this word focus, it's detracting from this idea of non-doing. So to get to non-doing, I think you need like this little pathway to get to it. And yeah, visualizations will come up in things like yoga nidra, body scanning, that kind of stuff can really, really help. And then you can have those moments of just, being.
Amazing. That was a lot of very useful information, Anna. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Anna does have a program coming up soon, which I'll link below whenever that's ready, and it's all about rest. Yes, so she is the go-to person when it comes to resting, and I think most of us probably need to implement that a lot more into our life, because as animals, you see animals rest all the time. You see children rest all the time, and it's because they are absorbing so much from their environment that they need to also slow down so that it can sink in. And as adults, we just get caught into this habit of living our lives in a very fast way, especially because we have jobs and we've got goals in life, and as you said, we've got probably family, some of us, and pets and all types of things, friends. So there's a lot going on for us as adults. But again, rest can be 10 minutes of your day. It can be 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, and that should be enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just about getting into the habit of doing this, and this way
Not doing this.
not doing this. And this way your body can actually also open up to being more receptive of this kind of practice, and you can start to feel the benefits of it, which is what's going to keep you going. It's going to keep you consistent when you can start to feel how much of a difference this makes in your life.
Yeah.
So it's all about starting. It's all about starting. Where can we find you?
So I'm really active on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a website, and it's all under A Way to Live Well.
A Way to Live Well.
Yes.
I love it. Awesome. So do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
Yeah, just rest well.
Rest well.
Thanks so much for having me as well.
Thank you so much for coming.